Well, hello, wealthy women. It is Coach Tamara here with another beautiful success story for you. So, this is one of the most important success story interviews you will probably ever see. And I really want you to reach out to Lisa when she's done sharing all about her work and what she does, because she, like me, is a money coach, money mindset coach. She understands completely all about blocks, how you get in your own way sometimes without even realizing it, and how to break through so you can succeed in the way that you want to succeed without any limitations. And she's absolutely so skilled, wonderful woman, and I'm so excited to get started with this interview. So I'm going to pass it over to her, and she's going to tell you all about herself. And then, as you know, we'll get into the success story questions and learn about her journey to building her business so that you realize you too can continue on your journey and be inspired by her success story. So, okay, over to you. Take it away. Tell us who you are, what the name of your company is, what you do, and what is your biggest why. Why do you love doing what you do?
Well, thanks so much, Tamara, for having me. I'm Lisa Drennon. I'm a wealth activator, an independent insurance broker, author, mom of three adult children, two grandchildren, a fur baby. I've been with my husband for a long time, 36 years now. And we both retired in 2021. I retired from the Social Security Administration after a 30-year career. Absolutely loved that job. During the time I was working there, I had three side gigs. One of them was coaching. I became a certified money coach back in the mid 2000s. I was working with teenagers actually and young adults, teaching them all the basics of finances and budgeting and how to read the stock market and things of that nature. And I just fell in love with insurance and finances at the Social Security Administration. I help people plan for retirement. I did a lot of helping people with disabilities get back to work. Did a lot of Medicare, and just of all the different levels of income that I worked with, I noticed one thing: regardless of how much money people had or didn't have, they all felt like there wasn't enough, or will there be enough when I retire? And when I decided to retire, it was kind of a fluke because, little rewind here. When I was a single mom at 18, and I ended up I was a bankruptcy paralegal, and I ended up filing for bankruptcy at 22 years old with $32,000 worth of debt. And in the 90s, that's, probably equivalent to around 70 to $100,000 now. And I was so embarrassed and so ashamed and so devastated. And I thought, how did I even get here? I knew better. I mean, I knew how to budget. It wasn't the problem. And I didn't know it at that time that I was trying to fill this emotional void. But I remember standing in front of the judge, the bankruptcy judge, and him looking at me. He's like, "You are so young. Why are you here?" I said, "Well, it's a long story, Judge." He's like, "You gotta promise me that you will learn everything you can about finances and never be in this position again." I go, "I promise." So shortly after that, I got into one of my clients had asked me if I ever read the book The Richest Man in Babylon. I said, "No." He goes, "Well, do you like to read?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an avid reader." He goes, "Read it." He goes, "If I was your age when I read it, I would be a multimillionaire." I'm like, "Oh, I want to be a millionaire." So I read the book and I implemented the practice, which ironically was the same thing my grandma taught me when I was 7 years old. Always set aside 10% for yourself. And so when I was, in second grade, she had given me $20, which back in the 70s was a lot of money. And she said, "Okay, I want you to save 10%, give 10%, and then the other 80%, you can do what you want." And my mom flipped out. "What do you mean? She's only in second grade and da da da." Well, that must have sparked something in my mom because I had to get a full-time summer job at 11 years old to babysit, to pay for my school clothes and supplies. And every summer I would work. I babysat the little boy across the street from me, 8 to 5 for $1 an hour. I have to put this in here because the guy, when if he came home 15 minutes early, he would dock me a quarter. And
Oh,
I remembered still to this day, it makes me so frustrated. And I said, when I get kids, when I get a babysitter, I'm never going to dock them. I'm going to round up and give them that extra. And that's exactly
mhm.
what I did. But,
Hmm.
at the summer of 15, I had said to my mom, I'm going to be 16 soon and I'm going to have to get a real job. So I'm not working this summer. I'm taking off. And I spent the summer at the beach, best summer. And we had every single day, whether it was raining, it didn't matter. We were at the beach playing volleyball, hanging out, meeting people, really enjoying life. And then my friend at the time was in accounting and she was going to go to school to become a CPA. And we would just, talk numbers, like multiplying money and like interest rates. And like we just had this love of money. And it was funny because I was raised a Christian, I was raised Catholic. And so, money is evil. And it's like, no, money's not evil. The love of money is evil. But I love talking about money. Does that mean I'm in love with money? So I had this love-hate relationship with money. And I thought, you know what? Let me listen to my grandma and just save 10% and do the right thing. And so I always did that with my money and it grew. But being a single mom, I felt like I never had enough. And so I was working full time and part time, raising my child just to try to buy clothes. And I was introduced to credit cards. So that's where I got in trouble with these credit cards. A family member forged my name on a loan after I had signed for a loan for him. And that's why I had to go bankrupt. But from that lesson, I learned that it's not shameful to have to go bankrupt. It's a new beginning. And, when I was 22 years old, I thought, it was a relief to get rid of all that debt, but it destroyed my ability to get an apartment, to buy a car, let alone buy a house. And I was with my husband, my then boyfriend at the time, and we'd gotten married and we bought a house. And as soon as my name went on that deed, all of a sudden I was getting these offers. Like my credit was really good. And I thought, why? Because I own a house? Well, no, it's because I was debt free at this time, but because I owned the house, I was showing my credibility. So my husband, every day he would date money, he would sit down and go over his numbers. We would save 30% into retirement and investments. And he's like, well, let's look at your numbers. I'm like, why? I'm almost 30 years old. I can't touch it until I'm 62. Who cares? He goes, that's the wrong attitude. I'm like, well, I don't care. It's all auto, I had everything set up. So everything was automatically taken out of my paycheck. And then any income I had from my side gig, I would just use to buy whatever I wanted to. Felt totally deprived. I felt like I never had enough. Groceries were killing me. And he was always upset if I wanted to buy the kids school clothes that were designers. Oh, they're growing. And I'm like, I don't care. And, I have a story when I was 13, I wanted a pair of Jordache jeans. And my parents told me no. And I begged and borrowed. And I said, it's my birthday and Christmas are, 6 days apart. Let me have it for, everybody pool in and get me these Jordache jeans. No. And I was like livid, temper tantrum at 13 years old, and I stomped my foot and I said, I will, when I have kids, they're getting designer clothes. And they did. So I never really had, a number in mind when I was working. All I knew is that I had to save for investments. I was reading this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and I thought, okay, I want to be a millionaire. But how do I do that? And I asked myself that. I implemented the system. I used the money envelope system. And then, back then you couldn't open up a lot of bank accounts. So I had three bank accounts. I had two checking and a savings. And I would, deposit all of my money into a savings account and then transfer it into the two checking accounts to manage it. And I was debt free, didn't have a debt. Didn't use if we used credit cards, we'd pay it off at every month. Well, fast forward to age 40, something hit me. And I remember I wanted to remodel our home. And I wasn't really interested in doing that until 40. I don't know what happens at 40. Our brains just kind of go to mush. And I saved money to do it. My husband and I saved money to do it. And I blew all my money according to him on other things. So when it came time to hire the contractors, I didn't have my money. He's like, "Well, what did you do with it? I don't understand. You were supposed to be setting it aside in this money bucket in this account." And I didn't have an excuse. I don't know what happened to it. So I started like getting embarrassed and within myself and feeling really ashamed. And this credit card offer came in. My oldest was 17 at the time. Came into the mail for him from Discover, and I'm like, why is he getting a credit card offer? That's ridiculous. So I like, wow, 0%, $10,000. I could use this to my advantage. and I'll just, put the money aside. I've done it before. I can do it again. So I got this credit card offer, and this started this cycle of being addicted to 0% credit cards. And so I would play this game of I would get this credit card, I would use my cash to pay for the contractors and then charge the groceries, the bills so that, then I would pay it off. But when it came to pay off, I'd find something else to do with the money and I would transfer the debt to another 0% credit card. I had really good credit, so it was fun. But at one time I had 12 credit cards opened and they were all maxed out and I didn't have any more 0% options. And I
Mhm.
thought, crap, what am I supposed to do? I'm not paying 24% interest. That was like a no-no in my book. So I called up my credit union, got a consolidated loan, put my car on up for collateral. And at this point, I was like, my husband told me, I was a hot mess. I ended up leaving him. We were separated for a year. And during that time, I was like racking up more debt, paying for the townhouse that I was living in and all the extra expenses because, we had the two homes. And I thought, something needs to give. I need to do something different here. Like, I know how to budget, I know how to manage money. Like, what is going on? And I remember just sitting at my desk at work and pounding the keys on the keyboard, trying to figure out how I was going to get out of this debt. And I'm like, all right, I have this system, I know what to do. And as soon as I would pay off a credit card, I would rack it up again. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? So when I opened up my business in August of 20, I was working with a marketing coach and we were talking. She goes, "Okay, I want you to start with this money mindset unit." And I said, "Okay." So I got into it and there was a coach in there that was doing this thing with hypnosis and NLP and all these different crazy woo-woo things and I was like, "What? What this I've never seen this part about money." So I, started watching these videos and I reached out to her, got into her group, and I was like, okay, I think I might need your help, but I don't know what you do. We got on a call for an hour and a half, okay? A free call, which I was shocked. Like, who does this in the coaching industry? She walked me through the entire process, brought me back to like when I was a little girl. I went on this beam of light, and something inside of me just crumbled. And I was in tears and I'm crying, I'm sobbing uncontrollably. I don't cry in front of people. In front of this woman I don't even know. And she was like motherly, like so soothing. And I was like, okay. And then she told me about her programs and I was like shocked because it was $10,000 to work with her for 6 months. And I'm like, you understand I'm in debt? Like, I can't afford that. And she's like, very soft tone, like, just, you know what? It's okay. She's just let it sit. And if it's right, you'll know. I'm like, okay. 2 weeks. And I thought every single day I kept getting a shift. I kept getting a shift. And then I looked at my debt and I'm like, can I figure this out on my own? And I was just studying to become a certified aromatherapy practitioner. So I started working on that and I started getting some shifts, some minor shifts, but I knew I wasn't getting to the root cause. So I decided to add up all of my debts. At this point, I didn't know how much money I owed. I didn't want to know. Same reason I didn't know how much assets I had because I didn't want to know because my 30-year-old self had said, who cares? It's not 62 yet. I'm only in my 40s, right? I had this dialogue going on that I told myself. I flipped out when I added up the numbers and I saw $100,000. I was like, what? What? And I was like, I went into a panic attack and I had to tell my husband. And, I was like, he was, well, you committed financial infidelity. And we got into World War III almost. And that was one of the reasons why I left. So I was like, I'm done. I am done. I felt like I was being controlled. So we worked on the marriage. We obviously got back together, but I decided to hire this coach. So at the time I was doing Dave Ramsey. I was integrated with Dave Ramsey. So we had cut up all my credit cards. I put them in this jar. And I knew I had one credit card that had a $20,000 limit. And so I dumped all the credit card pieces and I cut them up in tiny, tiny pieces. And I made like a puzzle. It took me 2 weeks to put them together to find this fidelity card to get the numbers because I had called and they wouldn't give it to me over the phone. And I got the number and I called her up and I said, okay, I'm ready. I go, I'm going to pay in full. And so she gave me a discount. So I paid in full $8,000. At that time, it was the most I'd ever invested. And I thought, I must be crazy. But my intuition told me, nope, this is exactly what you need be to get to where you want to be. So I worked with her for 6 months. We did so much inner child work, and I completely, I wrote the Dear Money letter. I looked at money as if money was a person, and I would draw like she was an artist. So I would use artwork to create my debt, my relationship with money. And I am not an artist. And I was just like, I can't draw. I draw a stick figure. But I remember she had taken me through this exercise to draw my debt. And it was, I got black ink. It was a big cave, big dark mountain. And then I took different colors and pulled out what I had spent my money on and drew them out. And I drew airplanes for traveling, cars for new cars, education. And when I looked at it, I was like, wow, I didn't rack up debt irresponsible. I really used it for things that were tangible and that helped me and my family get ahead. And then it made me feel like, okay, well, I'm not that bad of a person. I'm not so stupid. I'm not, so irresponsible. And it totally allowed me that shift in my realization, realizing that my debt wasn't shameful and that if I could rack up $100,000, I can earn $100,000 to pay it off. That would be good. And my coach, her name is Heidi Carter, she looked at me and she says, well, you've looked at your debt. What about your assets? She goes, when was the last time you looked at those? I go, when I was 30. I go, who cares about looking at those? She goes, well, it's important to look at your whole money, your whole situation. So I looked at my finances and I drew out the assets and I was like, I'm a millionaire. I'm like, wait, I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm like, wow, when did this happen? And I had to go back and figure out the date. And she's like, and what happens if you use your assets to pay off your debt? I go, no, I can't do that. She says, well, what do you mean? I go, it's not my money. She says, well, whose money is it? I go, well, my husband would never allow me to take from my money to pay this off. She's like, but honey, it's your money. It's not your husband's money. Who worked for it? And then so I had to go through that dialogue. And we still have an inner struggle with that dialogue. And I said, okay, and well, this time I'm working full time, right? I got these 3 side gigs and my debt's starting to get paid off, and it's dwindling down from the $100,000. And I'm looking and I'm thinking my contract with her ended and I get an opportunity to retire early. And I meet with my financial guy and I was like, well, can I retire? He's like, absolutely. He goes, you can retire. And if you draw $2,500 a month from your 401k, you'll have it till you're 95. And I says, well, my intent is to start this coaching business. I'm working at that time. I was working with women, post-abortion women, helping them, using the aromatherapy, helping them to heal from their wounds. And I looked at my husband. He's like, I don't think it's a good idea. You should just wait till 56 and a half. That was your original, agreement with yourself. And I said, well, am I breaking an agreement with myself? Am I being disloyal to myself? And then I thought, well, no, because I really want to do this business. And then I ended up retiring and he wasn't fully on board, but it was ultimately my decision. And then once I retired, I had access to this money because I was retired. And I thought, okay, do I want to use my assets to pay off this debt? And when I ran the numbers, I was still a multimillionaire and the market was doing fantastic. And I was looking at the 0%. So I'm like, well, I could leverage this, but I don't want to get back into the trap of racking it back up because that was the key was to break that cycle that I call it a generational curse. So I took my assets and I bought a new car, moved to my dream home at the beach, paid off that debt, the balance of that $100,000 worth of debt, and made a commitment. I made a choice. Okay, this is it. We are not going to get into debt. We will use debt to leverage our assets, but we will not get into debt. So we ended up getting a mortgage to take advantage because the interest rates were so low when we moved. And our ROI on our investments was over 12% average. So we were like, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, we did. My husband's a genius when it comes to investing. And so I started paying attention to my investments. I started looking at my money, dating it once a week. And then women were asking me when I was coaching, like, can you help me with my finances? And then I opened up an insurance business. I'm an independent insurance broker specializing in Medicare and insurance for self-employed and annuities. And I was just like, oh yeah, sure. So here I am helping them for free, doing their budgets and stuff because it just came so natural. And then my husband's like, why aren't you charging for that? I'm like, I wouldn't even know what to charge. He goes, well, maybe you should transition your coaching into financial. I said, well, I don't even know what that looks like. And because I carried that $100,000 worth of debt, I didn't feel confident. I felt like fraudulent. And I had to do that work through that. And I hired a coach. I was with her for 3 years. And I had a VIP day with her in November of 22. And we got to the root, cause of where that shame and guilt was coming from. And it was for my 17-year-old self. Prior to age 17, I found myself pregnant 3 times, and two of them sadly ended in an abortion. And that made me feel so unworthy that I couldn't that I couldn't step into my true self and share my true stories because I had so much shame and guilt. And I was so focused on people pleasing. And I just gave my power away. I just let everybody make decisions for me. I couldn't make a decision without asking 10 people, oh, was this the right decision? Wouldn't listen to my intuition at all. So on that VIP day, by the end of the 8 hours, she's like, well, what do you really want to do? I'm like, I love talking about money. I mean, I just love it. I remember that summer of 15. I remember just being a bankruptcy paralegal. I remember, working I was a merit badge counselor for the Boy Scouts, working with the youth, and really like, I would light up. She says, well, start coaching in money. And I said, well, I date money, so I guess I could. She goes, go online, get the get the domain for that. And
Yeah.
that's how I Date Money was conceived. And shortly after that, I opened up my beta, and it's evolved from there. And now I do finances, and I say I'm a wealth activator, not a money coach, because we combine the money mindset, the relationship money, with the management, and for both business and personal, so that we can create our true wealth, so that we can build out our legacy, so that we can partner with money and not have to go through the generational things that we carry throughout our life, believing that money doesn't grow on trees, money burns a hole in my pocket, I gotta borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And once we can break that generational curse and we can understand and take our power back and listen to our intuition and connect with money on that personal level, seeing money as a person, as a relationship, dear money, I love you, but sometimes you're driving me crazy. That's what lights me up.
Ah, wow. I think, first of all, thank you for being so authentic and honest and vulnerable and sharing your journey. Because there are so many women that will be able to relate to this in either full capacity or a portion of this, because this is such a common story in some way or another with women. And I even had my own, and it had something to do with I was able to make money, but I wasn't able to keep it because I gave it away as a form of, let me show you how much I love you. And
Mm-hmm.
that cost me one of my biggest prized moments is I lost a house that I bought by myself with my hard earned working ethics and money saved. Proud moment coming from a single family household myself. I just wanted to know that I could do it on my own. It's great if you
Mm-hmm.
have a partner and you can share that together, but I just needed to prove it. And kind of like what you were saying, and this relationship you have with your grandmother, so beautiful. But even back then, my mom said to me, for high school, she said, "What do you want for your graduation present?" I said, "I want to go to this real estate seminar so I know how to invest in real estate." And she looked at me like, "You're 18, go have fun." And I said, "No, this," and I just remember I was so driven to learn. I got my real estate license just not to sell real estate, but I wanted to understand what I was doing before I purchased my first home. And it was, I was young. So, like, when I bought my first home, I was so proud of myself. And then I just, I don't know, that whole idea of giving away that power.
Mhm.
It's a theme that shows up for many of us women. And it took for me, the reason that I shared this with you, the reason I became a money coach myself was because I could, once that happened, I still had ambition, but I wasn't moving forward. I was stuck and like I couldn't make money and I couldn't figure out what's my problem. Why am I doing this? And I'm very, intuitive. I meditate, I walk, I all the things. And I'm like, how do I not know myself? What's my problem?
Mhm.
And I went to a seminar, and this brilliant coach, she also did some work with me that went back, and it broke me, and me out of my block. And it basically came down to I was very afraid to make more money because I just figured I'm going to lose it again. So why bother? And
Mhm.
when she called me on that, everything changed in an instant. It was, and this is why I love that you shared your story so much, because there may be many of you, we might deter a little bit from my normal success questions, because this is so powerful what we're doing right now. And I almost don't want to jolt it out of what this natural flow is happening, because I think this is really important. I just want to say to all these women, if you happen to be experiencing something similar to this, and you think that there's no way that you're going to be able to be as good as you used to be or level up or get back to you, both of us sitting here right now are here to tell you, yes, you will. You are just, you have a block. And forgive yourself for not being able to possibly see that block, because we think we should know everything about ourselves, and we put so much pressure on ourselves to do it all by ourselves and figure it out by ourselves and not ask for help. We're supposed to help others, right? Who are we to ask for help? And it's this kind of thing is going to keep you chasing your tail. Now, this is why I said in the very beginning, I want you to reach out to Lisa, because she's been there, she's walked the walk, she's talked the talk, she's had the downtime and the uptime. And this is someone you can relate to, someone who can help you. This is where that trust comes in, the expertise and authority, how she trained herself to get all the knowledge to fix her own self first, and then wanting to help others fix their situations. So what I just basically want to say to all of you women, please, let's let go of this shame. There's no shame. And I also like how you've reframed it, because a lot of it also comes down to the fact that we think sometimes it's we're not going to have our freedom if we have to save, and we don't give ourselves yeses all the time. And
Mhm.
I have learned that you can actually create a sense of financial security for yourself, which includes all the desire for the freedoms that you do want. In fact, the security is going to give you an emotional sense of freedom, which is what many of you might be missing, because it's kind of like feast or famine, right? Or roller coaster ride, or you're right on the edge. You got that travel to Paris, but now your bank account's low, and you're like, yeah, I'm so glad I went to Paris, and I had my freedom choice, but now I'm freaking out because my bank account's low. There's a way to actually go to Paris and have your bank account be stable so that you can enjoy freedom, not only in your desires of what you want to pursue in life, and you should, that's what life's for, go live it, but do it in a way that you don't go in circles beating yourself up. And this is exactly why money coaching is so important. I wanted to
Mhm.
talk a little bit more about your desire to help the young ones and get into that possible, focus on reframing money, and how they should grow up considering it. So go ahead and take it away a little bit more. Talk to me more about what you're doing, how you're helping, what the transformations are, why it's obvious this work means this is you. This is your mission in life, to help people the way you were able to help yourself come out of it and go through it. So share a little bit more, because your story, I know, is resonating so much with so many.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important for our youth to learn finances, and we don't, we're as a kid, I wasn't taught anything; it was caught. Every Friday, my mom would sit down. She was an entrepreneur, and she would, have her money envelopes out, and she would be allocating her money into each envelope, complaining the entire time. And I would observe it and I would be, she'd like, I gotta borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And I'm like, well, who's Peter and who's Paul? And why are you borrowing from them? And she would explain to me that, I had three older brothers and they ate her out of house and home, as she would say, and she would never had enough money for food. But she liked to cook and she would buy like really good food. So she would take from the gas and electric money envelope to add to the groceries thinking I'll make up for it later. And that's exactly how my ideas were. And so when I became a mom, I thought, you know what? I'm going to teach my kid how to manage money. So when he was 7 years old, I made a little checkbook for him. I got a little checkbook register. I made him little checks and I taught him how to balance a checkbook, how to write checks, and I gave him an allowance and told him how to manage his money. So I'd give him like $1, $2, whatever. And it was separate from chores. A lot of people say, well, should I tie my chores into allowance? No, chores are expected. So he would do extra work to get the allowance, extra jobs. And he's very handy by the way now. And so teaching him that concept, I'm like, okay, we always save 10%, we always give 10%, and then you have this 80% to do what you want with. And to this day, he still does it. He gets a little tiny piece of paper out and writes it all down every single week. And he just recently became an entrepreneur, and I gave him my star formula to teach him how to set up his business, and we went through that, so that was really exciting. It was fun to watch him, grow that way. And somewhere along the line, I thought, you know what? He's got two kids, I have two granddaughters. And I thought we were at the store, we went to the dollar store, and he told them, well, you can each get five things. So we were with our aunt and we were walking through this store and they each got their little basket and they're filling it up. It's way more than five things. And so we get to the point where like, okay, we're done picking out things. Let's choose things now. And so we spread everything out and they each chose five things. And I said, okay, so this each item cost $1 and I was giving them a lesson. And I thought, and then we went and paid. I gave them each $5 and they paid. I said, okay, you're going to get change. And, you got to make sure this is what you do with your change. And, the older granddaughter was like, oh, wow, this is money. Okay, cool. And younger granddaughter was like, oh, whatever. A little bit too young, maybe. So I thought, I'm going to write a book. And I have this one of the things that I did to help heal my own journey, my own self-sabotage was to go to a safe place mentally. And I went into this safe place, and in my safe space, there's a lion fin. Lion fin is a half lion, half dolphin. He's fun and playful, and he lives in a cave underneath the water with a beautiful waterfall. And every time I get into the point where, sales aren't coming in the way I want to, my clients aren't doing what I think they should be doing, like I start to get in my head, I go to this safe space wherever I am. And, it's at the ocean, which is my favorite place. And I just sit there. And I thought, you know what, Lionfin, you're going to be the star of a book. So I created Lionfin's Money Adventures for ages 3 to 7. The first book will come out in the fall of 25. What year are we in? And and I thought, okay, it's going to be a series. And I'm like, why 3 to 7 year olds? That's such a weird age group. Like never really taught money to 3 to 7 year olds. And I was talking to one of my clients who's a human design coach. It's like, because that's what it is. Listen to your intuition, listen to your sacral authority. So I wrote the outline for the 7 books, and then I started writing the first book. And I thought, okay, how do I want to teach this? And like, what was the first thing that I taught? It was like, save, spend, and give. So the first book will be about, that concept, and very whimsical, and it's going to be a series of 7, and each book will have a lesson. And then I created one of my clients is expecting a baby, and her husband asked if I could give them a ebook on, for the baby and what to do to set them up financially. And I said, well, definitely teach them what you learned in the Wealth Accelerator. And I created this book for them, Baby's First Financial Steps. And it just outlays everything that parents need to do to set their child up for success, to teach them about finances in a fun way, of course, by the book. And they were like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And, and just working with them in less than 6 months, they're completely debt free. They have investments for their retirement, they've set up their baby fund. They know exactly what to do. They, got their life insurance in order, their last will and testament. So all these things that we don't really know about was really important for me. And I thought, if our kids knew how to do this, imagine what our future looks like when we're raising financially literate children, debt-free society, making choices that are in alignment with our values and what we love. True wealth is not a specific number. It's not making $20,000 a day. True wealth could be a tiny home on a beautiful landscape on a lake, or it could be a huge mansion. You have to really go within and say, what does true wealth mean to me? What's going to make me happy? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to care about the money in your bank account. You're going to care about the experiences and how you cared for your loved ones. And if you need $1 million to do that, get $1 million, because money is available for all of us. We hear continuously that money is energy, it's currency. And, that energy flows to whoever will receive it. And when we understand that we're worthy to receive it, because money in the hands of good people does amazing things, that's when we're going to be able to create that ripple effect and create, one of the things I said to myself is I want to create a legacy to the seventh generation. And that's my goal. My mission is to help 1 million women become millionaires without sacrificing their self-sovereignty by falling head over heels in love with money, teaching that to their children, and creating this true wealth legacy that we all desire.
Wow, you are so made for what you're doing, for who you're helping. I am so excited for every part of what you've already gone through and what you have to come and how you can help people. And maybe just share a little bit more about your programs for women right now that you have. How can you help uh, we know your books are coming out for children, and this is everything because this is going to change that whole generational cycle and redesign things in such a healthy way that they should have always been taught with,
Mhm, yeah.
you know and you're finding a solution. There's a need for this and you're filling that need. So it's better, to just recognize where there are holes in the system, and then instead of maybe, complaining about it, let's take some action and fix those holes, right? And that's exactly what you're doing here by educating children with these books and families. And this is just such a legacy work that you are definitely doing. So share a little bit of what a woman can expect, like a woman entrepreneur, or a woman in general, or anybody in general, that they can expect to experience with your programs,
It's always evolving, but I've
as it
done one to
should.
one, as it should. Yes, I do group coaching, one to one consulting as well. I do estate planning. I have my main program is I guess my signature offer is the Wealth Accelerator. It is a 12-week program for 12 ladies. So I run it 3 times a week at different times, so wherever the ladies want to fit in, and then every 12 weeks we get a new group. We the we first month we focus on the money management. I work with entrepreneurs, mompreneurs, mostly divorced mompreneurs who are commingling funds, who have assets, but they're like, I feel like my money vanishes in thin air. So that's my main audience, multi-passionate. Usually they have multiple income. Some of them work strictly on commission. My favorite thing that they say is, "But you don't understand. I don't have consistent income. I work on commission." So do I. So do I. I get it. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it. And so I teach them the management, and at the same time I introduce the aromatherapy using the power of essential oils to rewrite their money story, to recreate that new relationship, to get to the root cause of what's blocking them. So I have a quiz, the money archetype quiz. There's 7 different money personalities. And I say we all have all 7, but there's that driver, and that driver dictates what we're doing with our money. And when we can meet that driver, we can say, okay, I want to be more balanced. I want to, bring forth, maybe the investor, or, maybe I like to be the gambler, but we just really want to have that balance and know, like, all the attributes of each personality serves us and helps us grow and alerts us to what might not be working, what's misaligned for us. So we really dive deep into that. And then on the second month of the 12-week program, we get into multiplying the money, setting up investments that are congruent with our level of safety, I guess, because there's three type of um, investors. There's the moderate, the conservative, and then the risk taker. So we really need to know which we are. And then the third month, we really focus on multiplying that money, instilling, changing the habits. I have it's an amazing breakthrough. It's integrated into the program as a 28-day breakthrough where we change our money habits so we spend 28 days just focused on changing our money habits so that we can create this new habit. So by the end of the 12 weeks, they're ready to ascend into the mastermind program and change the relationship and dive deeper into that partnership aspect. Because I always say most women who have debt, who feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck, will go out and buy all the shiny objects. They'll get all the multiple income streams, and yet they still don't feel good enough. And when they look at their money, because most women are afraid to look at their money, they see, wow, I have this much money coming in. Like I have a money map, and it's people can buy it separately on my website, idatemoney.com. But there's a money map for personal finances and a money map for mompreneurs. And the money map for mompreneurs, they look at it and they start to plug in their numbers. They're like, I have that much income coming in. Well, wait a minute. Where does it go? It's like when our P&L doesn't match our bank account. This puts it in perspective. And one of the things I also do for in the Wealth Accelerator is a profit gold audit. So I look at their business and we look at where the holes are. We look at their signature offer, who they're serving, what their business plan is, what their operating expenses are, and we take it and we piece by piece, and we're like, okay, this is what we can do so that we can bump our, what's your profit margin goal? Let's reverse engineer that. And then, like, let's create this money map, the wealth activation roadmap, to get you started on this journey so that you can reach your number. It all starts with, what's my number? How do I want to get there? And the bottom line is, like, when you go on that trip, your destination is your true wealth.
Oh, I love everything. It's so clear. You're letting everyone know that there is a path to this. And, awareness is such a big thing. You need to be aware. You need to learn to be open to receiving. You need to not shame yourself. You're not broken, you're just blocked, right? And then you have this blueprint to help them really excel. And it's those little successes that start building upon one another before all of a sudden you forget what was and you see what is and what can be, and you have a new path. And not only that, you're going to share that you know new breakthroughs you're having with others, and that's where you get to help all generations. So I am so excited about the work that you're doing. And I'm really glad that we decided, or it just went that way. I just trusted that it was meant to be, our interview was meant to be like this rather than, the success questions, which, we'll get to. I'll add your success questions in reels and get your advices out on them. But I think this is such a big, huge topic for women, and it needed this whole breathing room for you to share and explain and let them see that spark of light and hope that whatever their current scenario is can absolutely be changed, and to let go of that baggage of shaming and blaming and all of the things, make a clearing, and then recognize, okay, I'm not aware, I need to be aware. How do I get aware? Well, what's your website again?
idatemoney.com.
There you go. Wow. I This is absolutely a groundbreaking interview, and I cannot wait to share it to every possible place I can get it out there too, because what you're doing, the work that you're doing is so important. I know that because, I had my block and it got changed and it changed my life like that. It can take
Mm-hmm.
literally I just want to say this to all you women who maybe been circling for a couple of years, not getting ahead in any way and still seeing yourself do the same, back and forth yo-yo routine with money, whatever that might look like for you. And you think, well, maybe this is just how it is for me. It's my destiny. No, that's not true.
Yeah, right.
Because when I got my breakthrough, this coach literally, it was less than 15 minutes and it was done. And I was forever changed and I was on my way again to positive growth. And you had an experience with your coach. The point is we do need coaching. We do
Mm-hmm.
need coaching because we can't see our blind spots. And as much as we want to think we are so, into our understanding of self, and maybe we are, maybe 90% of it we really are, but there's that little 10% it's a shadow side, and you need to get help with it, because as soon as you get that help, your life just moves forward fast and happy and positive and confidently. It happened to me, it happened to you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
I know other women this has obviously happened to. So invest in yourself, because you are the best product in the entire world, and if you can help yourself, then you can be of service to others. So just stop chasing your tail, get in touch with Lisa and let her help you. So I am so thankful for this amazing interview, and I guess that's it for now. Be inspired, my beautiful, wealthy women out there, and say yes to yourself. And you probably even heard, if you listen again to this interview, you'll hear, yeah, I want to be a millionaire. Like, she didn't block it. She's like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a millionaire. I want my house on the beach. You have to let yourself know that it's there for you to receive. It already exists. You just have to be open to allowing it to come to you. So allowance is a big deal. Awareness is a big deal. Boundaries are a big deal. All of it is a big deal. And this should be the most important work that you do for yourself, because you're also going to help if you have children and your extended family. You're going to be able to bless them with your wisdom and help them as well. So I guess that's it for now. I'm so inspired by this interview. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing and showing the path that can happen, because we get it. We're, we're all
Mm-hmm.
we're all like each other. We're not that different. And what's such a blessing is we can, by sharing these stories, we get to be of service, right? That's ultimately
Yes.
the greatest gift, is to be of service and to help. So, okay. Well, one more time, share your website one more time so everybody got that.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much, Tamara, for having me here and just allowing me to share. And it's just so important for all women out there to know. And, I always say, well, what about men? We're focusing on women today. um,
Yes.
all the women out there, like, you do matter. You are special. You are your best asset. And when you look inside, when you connect with your younger self and you ask yourself, like, what do I want and how do I get it? That is so important. That's going to shift you right there. So if you want to check out the website idatemoney.com, go find out who your money archetype is, get your free wealth activation guide, and go check out those ebooks. idatemoney.com.
Wonderful. Okay, that's it for this success story interview. See you all next time, and go be an inspiration and be inspired also by these wonderful success story interviews. See you next time. Bye for now.